Jason, a really, really interesting post. Very, very interesting. I think it's a fascinating ad, and there's some things in here that are pretty complex. And I'm gonna describe those to you in 1 second. And there's some really interesting decisions that were made by the designer who created this ad. And I think I think it's a great ad. I do. I think it's fantastic. So let's go ahead and take a look. Now, a couple of things you said. So you give it a good background. That's fantastic. Thank you for that. Let's talk about the mechanics of the ad itself. So now, I don't think Nike, Nike is, they've got some pretty controversial ads. So I don't think, Nike's not afraid to stick their neck out there. They're not. And they've been in hot water in the past many times because of that reason, plus of some of their corporate practices. But Nike has never shied away from controversy in their advertising. So I'm not so sure if that's the reason. I think it would have been too obvious to show the kneel. I think we all know what the kneel is. I think what this ad is trying to do is trying to look beyond the kneel and to look at the individual and the impetus of the kneel and determining what's more important here. The message is that the man's beliefs are more important than at that point than his very, very, very lucrative NFL career. He stood up for what he believes in by kneeling down. And I think that's pretty impressive. And I think that it would have been over the top to show him kneeling. I think what they're trying to do is create a connection with Colin Kaepernick, the individual, as opposed to Colin Kaepernick, the quarterback. Okay, so you mentioned I don't think with a straight on headshot like this. I think symmetry makes sense, okay? Because the face is symmetrical, right? So you build the ad based on the symmetry of the face. I'm going to show you some other things that the designer did in this ad that are very interesting, and they're based on the face. Okay, so yeah, we have contrast of black and white. That's interesting, and I think that contrast is reinforced and emphasized through the use of type. So that's another very interesting ad. One of the things I want to ask you about is the use of negative space. So I want you to tell me about the scale. Why do you suppose this is such an ultra close-up? Why isn't it out a little bit further? And why isn't it even closer up? Why did the designer decide on this focal point to present the face? Okay, that's my question for you. Would the ad change if the scale of the face changed? Okay, and then the other thing I want you to notice is this type. It's for a very minimal ad. It's actually very complex. The type itself actually mimics Kaepernick's face, or anybody's face for that matter. Let me show you a couple of things. Do you think it's by design, or do you think it's a coincidence that the first line of type is almost exactly the width of his pupils? That's not a coincidence. That is purely by design, and that creates an intense connection between the type and the eyes. What's the first thing we look at in this ad, Jason? What's the very first thing we look at? And I just presented this to the student that posted before you regarding the use of the eyes, and that was in a CoverGirl ad. And my question was, why is this ad so magnetic? It's the same thing as this ad. Why is this ad so magnetic? There's a reason, and you nailed it right here when you talked about his eyes. Whenever we have an individual, a human face in any kind of composition, eyes lock right in to the eyes. Okay, so the first thing we'll look at 10 times out of 10 without fail is right here, the eyes. Okay, so this designer actually used that to his benefit by creating this wonderful connection between the width of the pupils and the width of the first line of text. Interesting, right? But he's not done, or she's not done. The designer's not done there. We also have the second line of text is roughly the same width as the face. So we have the text that's mimicking the width of the eyes, the width of the face, and then guess what? You got it. This width right here is the same width as the mouth. Isn't that intense? Very interesting. These are things that designers, this is things we do, little tricks that we do to lock the viewer in and not let them go. Now, when most viewers look at this, they don't see what I just described. They don't see it at all. They just see an ad. It's a magnetic ad. We're drawn to it. We're attracted to it. We have trouble looking away, but we don't necessarily know why. Do you see what I'm saying? And those are the reasons why, is that the dynamics and the mechanics of the ad itself. My question to you is this. Would this ad be more or less impactful if it were in color? And would it be more or less impactful if the logo were placed in the lower right-hand corner? So those are my questions. And it's just really great post, Jason. Good job. It's a great ad. A great ad. I love it. Okay, fantastic. So go ahead and address those questions. And if you have any questions for me, have at it. All right, great job. Thanks, man.